We have Mike on the line who called in last segment. I wanted to give Mike a little bit more time to call in. Mike, thanks for waiting. What's up, man?
Yes, as far as the video games go, I've talked to my grandsons. I have 14 grandchildren. They all play video games. And some of the older kids, they play Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto. And my grandson says that one of the favorite parts of the game is when he gets to upgrade his weapon.
Right.
And the entire game is the more you kill, basically you get to the next level.
Mike, can I ask you something? You said this is your grandson or your son?
My grandson.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. As a responsible grandparent, have you spoken to him about this?
Yes, all the time. I did not like
him
getting the games in the first place.
Sure.
But I was up against a lot of peer pressure from his friends, and he absolutely refused.
Yeah.
And he's grown up since then.
Good.
But he told me what it's like. You get hooked on this, and he says there's like it flashes, and you get these feelings.
How about his parents? Have his parents been involved in these conversations?
No, I was the parent.
Well,
and
I understand. Okay. Well, you know what, Mike? Here's the thing, and I'm glad you shared that story, Mike, and I'm also glad that you had those conversations with him. Listen, who knows, Mike? Maybe if you don't have that conversation with your grandson, maybe he does something horrible. And I'm not insinuating that he would have, but all I'm saying is you never know. There needs to be more people out there like yourself who are responsible, who will talk to your kids about these types of things. Say, hey, listen, this isn't real life. This is getting out of control. So on and so forth. Yes. Well, Mike, I'm glad you shared that story, my friend. Thank you for calling in. There's no question that is an issue in our society.
Well, the question is, when is virtual reality becoming too real?
Right. Yeah. No, you're right.
Because it's very hard to differentiate, and he's totally right. If you sit there and you're in the zone and you're playing for 5 to 7 to 9 hours,
it's an issue,
and your entire goal is to murder, literally end the lives of people. Now, granted, they're not real people, but you're still talking to them, you're still having conversations with them.
It's an issue,
and that's what you want to do. Is you want to kill them.
And I'm glad that this person is responsible and spoke to this child about this, because who knows what would have happened.
That's one of his 14 grandchildren.
It comes down to
which is a feat in itself.
More important than the video games, it comes down to parenting. That's what it comes down to. 257-5396. Let's go to Stephen. Stephen, what's going on?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning,
Brian and JD.
What's up, Stephen?
I'd like to address the potential solutions on the horizon.
Okay.
I mean, it's amazing to me that we think that we're the only country that's ever experienced this problem. I would submit to you that I think that there are a number of people that are taking tremendous steps towards educating the American public regarding the problem and the available alternatives.
But can I just interject and say, Stephen, you would agree that of all the countries out there right now, as far as mass shootings go, the United States has the biggest issue when it comes to mass shootings. You would agree on that, correct?
Yes, I just don't know who's doing them.
Well, what do you mean you don't know who's doing them? What do you mean? We do know who's doing them. Usually,
no, we're given a story, and it's his story.
What do you? I don't understand. Are you saying that it's a conspiracy?
I have a 9/11 group, Brian. There's no question that would not have happened without government agent participation.
Okay, but that's a different subject. You're talking about 9/11. So you're saying, let's talk about Paddock in Las Vegas. You're saying that you believe in conspiracies.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
He had 23 guns.
We can have a conversation about that.
He had 23 guns in his room.
Right.
Yes.
Did he intend to hold off the entire military and police force of Nevada and probably California for the next 10 days or 2 weeks?
No, I think he was suicidal.
Why would a guy have 23 guns in his room?
Because he's a nut job and he wanted to kill a bunch of innocent people.
Honestly, Stephen, I think he was an arms dealer, and it was an arms deal gone wrong.
Well, we don't know.
Good, JD.
Okay,
now you're thinking.
We don't know that.
That's what the American people are trying to encourage many liberals to start doing.
Hold on, Stephen. Hold on a second. We don't know that for sure.
No, but
we don't know.
There is. Hold on.
We place percentages on potential answers.
You're saying that all these mass shootings are conspiracy theories, and we're not getting the truth.
Let's go one at a time.
All right, Texas, El Paso.
Together, otherwise, we won't learn.
Let's talk about the El Paso shooting. Well, I don't think we.
I'm not saying they're conspiracy, but I do think it's very, very odd that a
23 guns.
58.
He was an arms dealer.
I understand. I understand. I get you. A 58-year-old man with zero military experience can get off that many shots quick with that many guns in that small amount of time. that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Regardless, Stephen,
an arms deal makes some sense to me because of those.
Okay, but regardless, Stephen,
and stopped the press conferences after 3. After I knew the lady that was investigating.
I understand.
There were a lot of information about
regardless, Stephen, 58 people lost their lives.
Are you going to talk over me, Brian, or are we going to talk about this?
Well, it's very difficult to talk at all when we're talking about the same stuff, but you're talking in circles.
Wait till somebody makes a point and then try to talk.
Well, you haven't made, in my personal opinion, you haven't made a logical point in this conversation.
I know, because you aren't listening.
No, I am listening, and you have zero proof to back up your claim that it was an arms deal.
That's the problem we have.
Give me the proof right now. Tell me right now.
Individuals don't recognize the Constitution.
Give me 100. Stop talking about the Constitution.
Freedom of speech.
Okay, you have freedom of speech. I'm asking you a specific question. Give me specific information that there's a conspiracy theory involved with Paddock. I want proof right now. Give it to me.
Well, okay, the first 3 press conferences that the sheriff here in town had, Laura Loomer attended. On the internet, within 4 to 6, maybe 7 hours, and I followed it through, experts throughout the world were responding to what he was alleging. And 3 days in a row, the experts proved that he was lying.
Okay, first of all, it is. I know it's.
Sheriff credit. Can I have one more sentence, please?
I'm waiting.
I will give the sheriff credit. On the 4th day, he says, "Okay, if you people aren't going to believe whatever we tell you, we just aren't going to have any more press conferences."
Okay, first,
which I thought was really creative because we're paying him to be sheriff, but we shouldn't have to pay to have him lie to us.
Okay, first of all, you have zero proof that he intentionally lied. Second of all, I was a reporter for 10 years. During ongoing investigations, and 58 people lost their lives, sometimes all the facts aren't correct, okay? So it is very possible, Stephen, that maybe he misspoke or said some things that were not true. He didn't have the correct timeline. That doesn't necessarily mean that there is a conspiracy theory in your eyes and all these people were in on it and the government was in on it, that 58 people lost their lives in Las Vegas. So I'm going to ask you again, with all due respect, all the proof that you've given me is that the police officer that was in charge held a couple press conferences that maybe some of the information was not factual. I want proof. Give me some solid proof that you think that the shooting in Las Vegas is a conspiracy theory. I'm asking you now a second time.
Well, I spent 30 or 40 hours listening to that information and investigating. How many hours have you spent?
And the police officer. Okay.
All that information
I'll answer your
question.
Incorrect. I'll answer your question.
How many hours have you spent?
First of all, I just asked you a second question.
How many hours?
Okay.
I told you.
I'm going to
40 hours.
I'm going to answer.
Listening to
okay. And I heard you repeat yourself 3 times. Now you're going to let me answer. First of all, I know somebody that was shot in the back. Okay, her life will never be the same again. So don't you tell me this story is not just as much, if not more, personal to me than you. That's number one. Number two,
more reason to get to the facts.
Number two, just because you've looked at something for 40 years doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. Number three, I've asked you several times now to be specific, and the only thing that you brought up is that the officer that was in charge, Lombardo, I believe his name is, did a couple press conferences, and you're saying some of the things he said were not factual. That is the only thing that you brought to the table in 40 hours of research. I'm going to ask you now for a third time, and I want you to be concise and quick, or I got to go to other callers. Okay. Give me something absolutely foolproof specific that would lead you to believe that this is a conspiracy, the shooting in Las Vegas.
Okay, I saw a picture of the gentleman who was allegedly killed.
Yes.
He was definitely killed.
Yes.
If the photograph is correct, and I'm not saying it is, I'm saying we should investigate and find out. He was lying in a bathtub.
No, he wasn't.
The picture that I saw, he was.
He wasn't lying in a bathtub.
Let's find out who's putting out
You studied this for 40 years. He wasn't lying in a bathtub. All the photos that I saw, he was lying down on the ground in a hotel room. You're telling me you've studied this for 40 hours and you don't even know where his body was lying? Carl, I'm sorry, Stephen.
I just told you I saw him lying in the bathtub.
He wasn't in a bathtub.
You wanted an explanation. Now you cut me off and say
because you're wrong.
Your explanation's wrong.
Because you're wrong. That's not right.
I spent 30 or 40 hours. You didn't spend 30 minutes.
You have no idea how much time I spent on this, and you have absolutely no clue.
Come with facts.
I know you're one of those people. I know you're one of those people that thinks that George W. Bush was behind 9/11, right? You're one of those people that thinks that they intentionally tried to kill 4,000 people in 9/11, and every single one of these mass shootings is a conspiracy. I get it, Stephen.
He didn't look too surprised when I saw him in front of those kids.
Right, Stephen.
Book.
Right, you're a nut. You think George W. Bush was behind 9/11? You're a nut. Yeah, every mass shooting is a conspiracy theory. And you spent 40 hours studying the shooting here in Las Vegas. What a disgrace that people think that way. What a disgrace. What a nut job.
Yeah, that was a bit over the top. I do think that some of the circumstances surrounding the October 1 shooting were a little...
Listen, it's okay to ask questions.
Questionable.
It's okay to ask...
As far as Paddock.
That's fine. It's okay to ask questions. But, JD, I asked him 4 times in that conversation to be specific.
He's a full-blown conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Well, I have a conspiracy. He has a low IQ, allegedly. 257-5396. That's my conspiracy. Good grief. Let's go to Tim. Tim, what's going on?
What's up, Tim?
Hey, guys. I got a kind of a take and a question, and
okay,
and kind of hear me out before you laugh. On assault weapons, defining them, I think, is the problem, and even defining what an AR-15 is. And here's why I say that.
I'm sorry. I had to laugh. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I'm saying, like, say they hypothetically ban the AR-15 tomorrow. What the gun manufacturer will do is make a couple engineering design changes and call it a different model.
I agree.
And basically,
you're right.
You've got the same thing. So
you're right.
It's a complicated question on
yeah.
how to ban assault weapons.
Well, you're right, Tim.
What you thought.
Well, first of all, Tim, I agree with you. Number one, I'm not laughing at you. You made a valid point there. And so why do they do that, Tim? I'll tell you why they do that. So the loopholes around the laws. So if new laws, change the way they do things and they do business, they have to come up with other ways to sell the weapons, right? So they find loopholes and ways around it, right?
Yeah,
definitely. I agree. And that's something that the government needs to look at. It's something politicians need to look at. I'll tell you, Tim, I have no faith in our politicians on both the left and the right. I don't. It's all about money. It's all about money, Tim. And when there's money to be made, people find ways to do it, right?
Yeah, it seems like the only common ground might be background checks, but I don't think they're ever going to agree on the definition of an AR-15 or an assault weapon.
Sadly.
So, that's just kind of my take.
No, Tim, listen, I agree with you. Sadly, I agree with you, and I think a lot of other logical Americans would too.
I think it has to come down to magazine size and how fast you can get the rounds off. And
Absolutely.
And then you have to decide what ammunition is. Ammunition is a huge deal. Armor piercing bullets. I mean, a lot of bullets that just when they come inside you, they explode and they just destroy your organs. That has to be a conversation that is not being discussed enough. Is the type of ammunition that these guns are shooting?
To me, that's just as important.
Well, the ammunition is what's killing people. It's not. Right. You're not having these mass shooters aren't pistol whipping people.
I agree.
They're shooting,
but it also
and the bullets are piercing their skin and ending their life.
I agree, but you would also agree that it's the amount of bullets that you can spray.
Absolutely.
They're both important.
It's a combination of things.
Yes, I agree. It is a combination. 257-5396. Let's go to BC. BC, what's going on?
What's up, BC?
What's up, guys? So here's your proof, man. I called last week, too. But Operation Northwoods, I hope Brian looked into that, for the 9/11 at least, because that's exactly what that was carried out. That was back in the 50s. But for the proof of the Mandalay Bay deal, all you have to look at is the SWAT team footage of when they busted in the room, and they're like, hey, that's us, that's us. There's no freaking window broken yet. How much more proof? And they got the guns strewn all over the room. It's like they forgot to break the window first.
Okay, so you're telling me there is a video out there that I have not seen, by the way.
I'm telling you, just like the older gentleman was saying, you haven't done your due diligence,
Okay,
bro.
so hold on. You're telling me that there's a video out there. You're saying body camera footage of them getting into the room.
Yes, sir.
And you're telling me that the window wasn't broken in the room. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do,
Let
BC.
me ask this.
Let me just ask him.
Is this video on Alex Jones' website?
BC, here's what I want you to do.
They kicked him off the air, bro, but I haven't checked his website. But that's why they kicked him off the air.
Listen, if there is a video out there
on YouTube.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Go on our Twitter page if you have the time. At the
I don't
Vegas
have Twitter.
Okay, well,
I don't tweet. I don't do with tweets or tweets. I don't do it.
Okay, well, if there is a video out there that I certainly haven't seen that, but if there is a video out there that exposes a window that is, you do understand that there were like several different rooms. So how do you know it was the same room where you
No, they had an adjoining suite. I understand, but both windows in each suite were broken out, my friend. Come on, they were in the room. Look, I swear to God, you'll see it, and you're going to be questioning yourself about this gun stuff. Look, I love your show, dude. I like how you guys take all the calls and stuff, like better than anybody. But Brian, man, you got to understand that they're lying to you. The
Who's
news
they?
is fake.
Who's they? Who's they?
Sam Smith.
Leftist New World Order. That's what I call it.
So I'm going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you that question again because I want you to be specific. Who was lying to you about the Las Vegas shooting?
The leftist New World Order. Look,
that doesn't mean anything to me. Be specific. Be specific.
Don't believe in God. It comes down to God and the devil. This is end times.
I'm going to ask you for a third time.
Who specifically is involved in the leftist New World Order, quote unquote, deep state?
Answer the question.
People who run. Okay, I'll tell you. Look, people who run big news corporations on both sides, by the way. People who run big news.
So you're telling me
Redstone, Roger Ailes was a big part of it.
So you're telling me that
Bilderberger meeting.
So you're telling me that the media is responsible for 50. You're telling me
Bob Iger.
You're telling me that the media is responsible. Leftist media is responsible for 58 people losing their lives in Las Vegas. Is that your position?
That's my position.
Okay, well, you're crazy.
Let me expand on this. Let me expand on this. Did you know that that probably about 85% of the leftist news media is owned by Jewish people? Are you saying that Jewish people are involved in this as well?
I don't want to bring it down to the Jew thing. I mean, in my end, we're all Jews, bro. Whether anybody wants to dice it or not, we're all Jews. That comes down to God and the devil, though. If you don't believe in that kind of stuff, then you're lost. But we're all Jews. I don't look at it like that.
So hold on a second. In this conversation, hold on a second. In this conversation, you've said you've blamed the left media for 58 people losing their lives in Las Vegas, and you've also said, hold on a second. You've also said that if you don't believe in God, you're lost. Are you on the record in saying those two statements?
No, not the first statement. The second, I think so. Yes, for sure. I mean, that's obvious. But the first.
So if everybody is not like you,
leftist deep state. The leftist media is part of it. It's under the umbrella.
Okay, so if everyone doesn't think like BC, they're lost. If everybody doesn't think and believe just like you, they're lost.
Look, I'm crazy on all kinds of things. My wife thinks I'm a nut sometimes. Give me a break. We're all wacky in some ways.
I think your wife and I agree. But I appreciate the phone call, PC. Thank you very much for calling in.
I think that your wife, Brian, and I are probably all on the same page.
All right, we got to take a quick. By the way, I agree with that. That's another segment for another show. But anyway, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. We'll take more of your phone calls. Matt, Carl, Chris, Wyatt, Brady. We'll take all your calls on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. Get back to your phone calls. A friend of the show, Chris Wynn, just sent me a text. He said some of your callers need to be institutionalized. Perhaps. Let's just blame the left for the shooting that happened in Las Vegas. Yeah, that's what it is. It's the media. It's the left. And then some other guy calls up, some nut job calls up and says that Paddock was, first of all, he says he did 40 hours of research. He doesn't even know where the dead body was. It wasn't in a bathtub, you moron.
But he definitely made sure to really push that thing home, that 40 hours of research.
That's one of the
which
guys.
Definitely makes his opinion much more valid than yours.
Listen, listen, the government got warnings in regards to 9/11. There's no question about it. But to say in your mind that you believe 100% that George W. Bush was behind the 9/11, well, I mean, it's just
you know, and I don't think we can argue that we wouldn't be in Afghanistan if 9/11 didn't happen either.
Yes, that is true. But to say, you know, that everything is a conspiracy.
All of these have questionable.
To say every mass shooting is a conspiracy.
Circumstances surrounding them, of course.
It's insane to say every shooting is a conspiracy.
You definitely can't. You can't matter of factly make that statement.
Hard to take people like that seriously. 257-5396. Let's go to Matt. Matt, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's up?
What's up, Matt?
What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
I just wanted to weigh in. I won't address the conspiracy theories because that's a little too wacky for me. But
me too.
The video game stuff, you know, I get so sick of hearing people blame video games. You realize Korea has the highest percentage per capita, you know, use of video games and virtual reality in the world,
yes,
and zero mass shooting. There's a reason for that. It's access to guns. It has nothing to do with media video games.
I think, you know, people talk about talking points. I do think that is a talking point on the right for people that do not want to get proper gun legislation, background checks, that sort of thing done. Maybe people that support the NRA that don't want anything to happen. They bring up video games.
Right. It's an excuse. And, you know, a diversion.
Yes.
Well, not only that, but it's going nowhere. Esports is now probably the next big thing in America. So, and now you can gamble on it. People are paid to be Call of Duty players. People are paid to be Fortnite players. I mean, it's going nowhere.
Well, listen, I played Super Mario Brothers as a kid, and I shot ducks. But in real life, I don't jump on ducks, and I don't shoot ducks. You know, I never really had the urge to do that when I was a kid. Hey, Dad, let's go outside and let's shoot ducks and let's jump on things. You know, I never had that urge either because it's a freaking video game. That's why. Anyway, Matt, thank you for bringing up that point, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. 257-5396. Why don't we go to Chris? Chris, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take, my man. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
What's up, Chris?
Hey, hi. It's real quick along this whole topic of guns. I went down. I decided to go get my concealed carry permit just because I don't want to be a victim. I figure I'll go out with a fighting chance. So just real quick, I don't know if you've ever been part of this process. You go to the police station, you sit there. It's a solid 3-hour process. You pay your $100, blah, blah, blah. So I'm squeaky clean. I've been here for 30 years, business owner, got a master's degree, wife, kids. So I know that, I check all the boxes. I know I'm golden. They said, I go, how long does this process take? They said, well, it's up to, 4 months. And I'm like, 4 months for an FBI background check? Isn't that like a click, 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 2 minutes, yay, nay? So what I realized was it's a mandatory hold period. Without calling that, the government saying, we're going to prove you, after we check, but we're basically, no matter what, I'm waiting 4 months no matter what. I just thought it was interesting. Without them actually saying it's a 4-month hold, it's 4-month hold.
Well, I would say that I don't really necessarily have a problem with that. Obviously, it's not working. It's not working in our society right now, whatever they're doing. The wrong time. Listen, people like you, I have no problem. You can buy guns if you want. I got no problem with that. And even if you had like assault weapons, I know that you would be responsible with it. The problem is I'm just not comfortable with assault weapons in general unless it's law enforcement or our soldiers. Go ahead.
I just think if citizens were more armed, if there were more good guys than the bad guys, like in the Walmarts, when this, we know this is going to keep happening. And I don't know if it's just because we're a violent society and we're in love of violence or whatever, call it what you want, video games, call it movies, call it whatever. But Americans love their...
It would be hard to deny that violence has been romanticized in media and mainstream media for a long time.
Well, Chris...
I wish more people would get a CCR because... these guys go into a Walmart, maybe a guy's got a gun, at least, he slows them down. So
I understand, Chris. I understand where you're coming from, my friend. I guess the point that I am trying to make is that I don't think more guns are the answer. I have no problem with somebody. You sound like a really smart guy. I've got no problem with somebody like you getting a firearm. I do have a problem with some of these weapons.
Have more guns, but make it harder to get the ammunition. Make the magazines smaller. Make the guns not you be able to shoot 30 or 40 shots in 1 minute.
And that's logical.
That makes more sense.
257-5396. Let's go to Wyatt. Wyatt, thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
What's up, Wyatt?
You touched on this earlier, and this seems to be overlooked continuously, and I'm really glad you guys brought it up, and that is holding people accountable.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if you can't afford a safe to properly secure your weapons, we can't afford you owning a firearm, period.
I agree.
What could break a parent's heart more, or society's heart more, than one child shooting another child in your own home? And that parent is allowed to continue to raise children?
You are absolutely right.
Are you serious?
You know what, Wyatt? You are so right. Wyatt, I talk about this all the time. Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. The Sandy Hook shooting. That mother, it ended up costing her life. I understand she's six feet underneath the ground. If not for her irresponsibility, perhaps that shooting would have never happened. She had a son that couldn't even interact in society, Wyatt. And what does she do? She not only teaches him how to shoot a weapon, but allows him access to weapons in the house. And nobody wants to talk about that. The parents...
They don't want to talk about responsibility when a child dies in a car because the parent forgot him in the back seat, for Christ's sake.
And you know what, Wyatt? You're right.
They're not held accountable either.
You're right, and our laws need to change in this country because if a parent buys a weapon and that kid finds access to that weapon...
Especially a weapon like the weapon that he had.
If that kid... accessory to murder, as far as I'm concerned, Wyatt.
Absolutely.
You're right.
That is totally reasonable.
That's an accessory.
Yeah, Wyatt, I'm so glad you called in, my friend. I got to get to some other calls, but I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Wyatt.
257-5396. Why don't we go to Alex next? Alex, thank you for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind, my friend? What do you got?
Good morning. Great show. You guys always good. Listen, real quick. I think that the reason why there's people that are way filled with a lot of conspiracy is not because I think they're crazy. It's because the government has given them the reason to doubt. And what am I referring to? I don't remember, but it's been many years. I remember reading the report that CIA was caught bringing in drugs into South Central LA. And if I remember right, it was cocaine. The other thing was the Rampart Police Department in Los Angeles, corrupt to the hilt. When you hear stories like that, and I know there's numerous ones, we're going to always constantly doubt.
It's okay to doubt.
As far as that shooting over at Mandalay Bay, the one thing that makes me really, really wonder is the shooter apparently had a camera looking down the hallway.
Yes.
They're trying to say that the guy was looking at this camera, and that when the security guy from the MGM came to the door, that's when Paddock started shooting him with the AR.
Right.
I cannot understand how that security guy is not dead. I mean, I would have thought this guy would have sprayed right across that
That was
wall, and he would have
suspicious.
murdered that guy.
And listen, it's okay, Alex, for you to ask that question. In fact, I've asked those questions, but you understand my point. When you have a guy that calls into a show that thinks he knows exactly what happened, and he says he does 40 hours of research, doesn't even know where Paddock's body laid. He said he in a bathtub, which is completely false. And he can't, and he doesn't have, and he thinks the reason why it's a conspiracy because the police officer in charge made some mistakes in a few press conferences. I'm sorry, but that's not enough. Now you're bringing up logical questions, and you're talking about that security guard who then was on Ellen DeGeneres, and it was very odd because apparently he was shot, I believe, in the leg, and then he left the country a few days after. That is bizarre. There's no question you're right. That is bizarre. Here's what I think happened, Alex. Here is my opinion. I believe Paddock was the only person responsible for this. He has mental illness in his family. He is a nut job. There's video of him bringing up these bags of guns up to his room. Here's what I think happened. I personally believe that the law enforcement in Las Vegas, they don't want to make these casinos look bad. And I personally believe that to an extent, they didn't get in that room fast enough. Who does that make look bad the worst? It makes MGM, it makes Mandalay Bay look bad. It makes law enforcement look bad. Look, make no mistake about it, there were a lot of heroes in law enforcement on that day. There are a lot of heroes everywhere on that day. But I think it was in their best interest for the police department to not, throw Mandalay Bay under the bus, so to speak. I think that's why they got their facts wrong, and that's just my take, Alex. I got to get to some more calls, my friend, but I appreciate the call.
Thanks for the call, Alex.
257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Chris. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, brother, how's it going, Brian and JD?
What's up, Chris?
So my, last night when I called Steve last night, my thing is the whole situation surrounding gun control and everything that Democrats want to do, Republicans want to do. I call them both of them. I said they were sworn to protect the Constitution when they took the office, and by far neither one of them is living up to that.
Chris, can I ask you a question real quick?
Absolutely, bro.
So, do we give you a voice on this show? Do we give you a chance to call in and speak your mind?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I heard a rumor that there are some people that say that there's nobody else in town that does that.
There's only one show that does that.
Chris, I just wanted to confirm that we do that. Yeah, and I think we've been taking calls.
You know what, Chris? That makes us feel very good.
Chris, when did you start listening to the show today?
Thanks for the validation.
When did you start listening today?
Yeah, I've probably been listening since like 9:30.
Okay, so we've been taking calls since then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So my thing is I was raised by my grandparents, and I thank God for that because my dad, he was an Army veteran, and I knew as a child growing up that my dad always had his revolver that had the bullets already ready inside of it. It held 5 bullets. I always knew that my dad had that gun right between the box spring and the mattress of his bed. But my dad taught me I was never to touch that gun unless he gave me permission to do so.
And you know what? Your dad sounds like a responsible individual. That's
there
what
you go.
Chris, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about responsibility. And I'm glad that your father taught you that, but sadly, Chris, and I'm sure you will agree with this, and by the way, I appreciate the phone call, is that there are too many parents out there that are, first of all, they're just terrible parents in general. Forget about guns. They're just bad parents. Look at the Clark County School District. Don't even get me started with that. The parenting everywhere. If you're not a good parent, you're probably not going to be a responsible gun owner. If you're not a responsible gun owner and you're not a good parent, Parkland is going to happen. Columbine is going to happen. These things are going to happen. There's a lot of different reasons for it, but you have to be a responsible parent. 257-5396 is the number to call. By the way, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's the truth. Let's go to Chuck. Chuck, what's going on?
I'm learning from all your callers. Keep them coming, callers.
Right.
Do you think Beto is going to go into Chicago and take those guys' guns over there?
Well, here's what I think, Chuck.
The gang members' guns?
Here's my take on Beto, and we did talk about this a little bit in the first segment. When he said, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, AK-47 away. You remember that, Chuck, right, in the presidential debate last week. I thought,
yes, sir.
Yeah, he was a little bit too emotional, a little bit too extreme to the left. But at the same time, I'm going to understand where he's coming from. And the reason why I say that, first of all, assault weapons are a problem in this country. Mass shootings are a problem in this country. It happened in his own state. He's been meeting over the course of the last several weeks with all these victims' families who lost their lives. How can you go after him? Donald Trump today calls him Dummy Beto. Okay, this is a guy that's shown some leadership. Now, I don't agree necessarily with what he said because I don't think it's going to happen. But no, I don't think anyone's going to take all these guns away. I don't think that's going to happen, sadly. I think Democrats and Republicans somehow need to come together and get some stuff done. But, I'm not a Beto fan, but I respect him greatly for what he's done over the course of the last month with these horrible tragedies that have happened in his state.
I don't think he did it on his own. He's on a puppet string on somebody.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. Go ahead.
On the other callers, ensuring in Canada, I think that's what they're trying to talk about. You're familiar with the burning of the Reichstag, right?
Yes, I am.
So they actually did it, but they blame it on the communists. And the Gulf of Tonkin, McNamara on his deathbed said it was a hoax.
Well, if you're talking about...
we can go on and on when weapons of mass destruction, Northwoods, like that other caller.
I understand.
Like the Sandy Hook and all these,
yes.
The stories don't add up. I don't think they're saying that.
How does Sandy Hook not add up? Explain that to me.
All these Batman, El Paso,
Well, explain it to me then. Okay, well, let's be specific. If you are a conspiracy theorist, I'm willing to hear you.
All I'm saying is I don't believe the story they fed us.
Which specific?
The Tonkin story
but you're all over the place.
The FBI story about the shootings here.
Let's talk about El Paso. This kid writes a manifesto. He walks into a Walmart.
They
kills.
Have these manifestos already in hand. They have the story.
Okay, so who else is involved then?
Minutes.
Okay, so I'm asking you to be specific now in regards to the El Paso shooting. Who else was
specific? I'm just saying that they're feeding.
Well, what do you mean you can't be specific? What do you mean you can't be specific? If you're saying that you believe in a conspiracy theory involved to a mass shooting, you have to be specific. Give me proof why you don't believe the story that the police are telling you.
I don't know. Did you see the 250 rounds, the clips? I mean, that's a heavy weight. That's
But there's proof of that. His friend who is. But that's not true. That's not true. If you're talking about Dayton and the 250 rounds he had, his friend is probably going to go to jail. There's proof that his friend assisted him in getting those types of weapons and ammunition. With all due respect, I mean, I'm just giving you facts, my friend. You're entitled to your opinion. But when somebody calls up, and Chuck, I appreciate the call. Listen, when somebody calls up and has some sort of conspiracy theory, I ask them several very logical questions. Number one, where's your proof? Where's your proof to think that this is a conspiracy theory? I need you to be specific. Don't blame Democrats. Don't blame Republicans. I want proof. That's number one. Number two, if you have proof or you think it's proof, I asked you, well, what is the reason? What is the reasoning why Democrats would want to kill 58 people in Las Vegas? What do they benefit from that? Those are the two questions I ask conspiracy theorists, and they fumble over their words, and they can't be specific. If this guy who just called in thinks that the Walmart shooting is a conspiracy theory, I gave him a chance, and he said he couldn't be specific. Then don't be a conspiracy theorist if you don't have facts to back up your opinions, or don't have even an opinion in that matter.
What they're saying is that these are set up by someone like a George Soros who comes in and hires someone to kill all these people.
Which is absurd.
So eventually the government people will be scared, and when people are scared, when fear is part of the equation, right, they agree to do things. And so the government would come take our guns, and then it would be a total tyranny over the United States, and it would be the next step to socialism. The problem with that is it's 2019. Technology is too strong for that to ever take place. The conspiracy theories, as far as that goes, are just way too far-fetched.
Yeah, and
it's just not now. If this was 1920, 1925, okay, fine. But the technology is just too strong right now. The word travels too fast.
Yeah.
It would never take place.
No. For the record, though, that other caller called in. We do hear your voice. We do take phone calls here. I just wanted to be on the record and saying
I believe we've taken about 84 phone calls today.
Well, we take more than 3 phone calls.
Sometimes. Every now and then.
Usually. 257-5396. Let's go to, oh boy, this is going to be fun. Let's go to Brady. Brady, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Brady?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. I want to bring up the shooter in Vegas. My theory on it, at the beginning, when that first happened, like that first night, within the first 5 or 6 hours after the shooting, there was a thing that came up on the internet that ISIS was behind it, and it was quickly scrubbed. But to this day, nothing has ever been solved on what he did, why he didn't do it.
That's not true. That's not true, Brady. It has been solved what he did. What hasn't been solved or figured out by the FBI is why. It has been solved what he did. There's video surveillance of how he received the weapons. Many witnesses there's video all over the casino of how he brought the guns up to the hotel room. This is a man that had severe mental issues.
He's probably tied to ISIS too.
I'm sorry?
He was probably tied to ISIS or some other
There is absolutely no proof that was brought to anybody's attention that he was in any way, shape, or form a part of ISIS. I don't know where you're getting
proof that proves anything then. Because
I just did. Okay, hold on. Show you proof.
The Las Vegas cops haven't showed me anything.
I will gladly show you proof. I will gladly show you proof. There is video surveillance of him over a dozen times, bringing up large bags up to his hotel room. Hold on, I'm not finished yet. Through video surveillance. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he did send $100,000 to his girlfriend at a very, very suspicious time. That's number two. Number three, there is absolutely 100% proof that he got at the Ogden Hotel downtown. He was scoping out Life is Beautiful festival. He was also scoping out the huge festival, I believe Lollapalooza in Chicago. So there is a ton of proof. Also, his father was a lifelong criminal. His brother is a pedophile. So it shows that he has mental illness in his family. You can also see a gunshot wound, a suicide, a dead body in his hotel room, which he scoped out, and he also bought an extra room there. So I just gave you...
You're leaving out one thing. You're leaving out one thing now.
Oh, so that wasn't proof, though? I didn't just give you any evidence?
You're leaving out one thing, Brian.
What's that?
We have another mass shooting with a guy who was on psychotropic drugs. Get it through your head, people. That is the problem.
You just asked me for evidence. I just gave you evidence.
I do think that big pharma's part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these young shooters are definitely diagnosed with ADD and whatever type of.
I didn't say that wasn't part. I agree with you. I didn't say that.
Disability and they're given medication.
But do you notice when Brady calls in and he says, "Show me proof"? And I just went on a rant for 2 minutes and gave you proof, and then you just all of a sudden conveniently changed the subject.
Sometimes I wonder if conspiracy theorists just like to be part of like a secret.
Show me proof, he says.
They like to be part of a conflicting, crazy opinion.
Yeah. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, what's going on, man?
What's up, Anthony?
You guys are going today. You know what? You need that X-Files music playing today.
You're right. I do, Anthony. You're right. Johnny, you got to find some of that X-Files music. Anthony, we're gonna do that just for you. What's up?
For me, it's too like I said, I've told you about my past as a young kid before I went in the military. What made me go into the military from being a crazy, stupid gang major to the military was a judge. Right? He was like, okay, listen, what's going to have to happen is either you're going to go into the military, because I'm 18 now, accused of murder, but I never shot nobody. But because I was a so-called shot caller leader, the judge was like, either you go to prison, or you go into the military.
Right.
Of course, I was like,
oh boy.
Military? Whatever. So, but I ended up going to the military, and of course, that changed my life.
We appreciate
that. A judge changed my life. But I think that, we've had gun buybacks in L.A. plenty of times, assault weapons, and I've never heard nobody complain about it. And I'm trying to understand now why people complain about a gun buyback. You can go online and you can research it.
I'll tell you why, Anthony. It's a good question. I'll tell you why, Anthony, because I think many people on the right, as a talking point, and many people on the right fear that Democrats are going to take all your guns away, when there is not one person in Congress, not one Democrat that wants to take every single gun away from you. So what Republicans do and what Donald Trump does and what Mitch McConnell does and people of that nature do is they try to put you in fear. And they say, Democrats are going to take all your guns away. And what does Donald Trump do today? He calls Beto O'Rourke dummy and starts attacking Beto instead of going after the real problems that face this country. Anthony, it is always good to hear from you, my friend. Thank you so much for your service. I'm so glad your life turned around because of that. Man.
Thanks for calling, Anthony.
We have a bunch of other people on hold, but I just don't know if we'll be able to get to all of you. But I'll tell you what, I will pick up the phone personally and apologize to you. What do you think about that? We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Amy Vanderpool will be coming up next from the BBC. You're listening to The Vegas Take.